My name is Michelle Carter, and for most of my 38 years, I thought I knew what security felt like. I had been married to Derek for 14 years. We built a home in a quiet suburban neighborhood, raised two wonderful kids, Ethan, who's 12, and Lily, who just turned 9, and, from the outside, we looked like the kind of family you'd see on a holiday card. Stable. Happy. Ordinary. Derek was a sales manager at a big firm, always the charmer, always the one people said was going places. I was a nurse, and my world revolved around keeping people safe and healthy, my patients, my kids, and Derek, too. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was comfortable, dependable, or at least, that's what I thought. About a year ago, Derek came home one night buzzing with excitement. "Michelle," he said, "I found this amazing app, Find My Family. It lets us track each other's locations. We can keep tabs on the kids, know when Ethan's at soccer practice or when Lily's bus gets delayed. It's about safety and convenience." I remember smiling at the thought. Safety. That was my language. I'd seen enough of the world's dangers through my job at the hospital to appreciate anything that promised a little peace of mind. Derek installed the app on all our phones that very night, making a big show of how responsible he was being as a husband and father. And at first, it was sweet. I used it to time dinner so the kids had a warm meal when Derek pulled into the driveway. Derek would check in on me during night shifts, sending little texts like, "You're still at the hospital? Don't overwork yourself." It felt thoughtful. Caring. I believed him. But the funny thing about technology is, it doesn't lie. It doesn't soften truths the way people do. It doesn't tell you what you want to hear. The first time I noticed something odd, it was a Thursday evening. Derek had called around 6, saying, "Client dinner tonight, downtown. Don't wait up for me, okay?" He sounded casual, almost cheerful. I tucked the kids into bed, poured myself a glass of wine, and glanced at the app out of habit. And there it was, his little blue dot. Not downtown. Not near any fancy restaurant. Across town. A residential neighborhood I didn't recognize. I remember staring at the screen, my glass hovering midair, my heartbeat quickening. My first thought wasn't even suspicion, it was fear. Was he in trouble? Did his car break down? Was he helping someone? I sent him a quick text, "Everything okay?" The app shows you somewhere else. He called back almost immediately, his voice smooth, steady, practiced. "Oh, that thing? Must be glitching. You know how unreliable these apps can be. I'm sitting here with the clients right now. We're talking numbers." And just like that, I let it go. He sounded so sure, so calm. I convinced myself I was overthinking. After all, Derek was the one who brought the app into our lives in the first place. Why would he set a trap for himself? Still, when I set my phone on the nightstand that evening, I couldn't shake the unease. The app had never glitched before. Not once. The next few weeks passed in a blur of work, school pickups, soccer practices, and family dinners. Derek started missing more of those dinners, though. Always with an excuse, "Traffic's crazy." The meeting ran long. I promised a client I'd grab a quick drink. He'd walk in later and later, smelling faintly of cologne I didn't recognize, his smile just a little too polished. The kids noticed too. Ethan asked one night, "Mom, why is Dad always working late now?" Lily chimed in, "Yeah, he missed my school play." I laughed it off, told them their dad was working hard for us, but inside, the doubt was back, gnawing at me. And then it happened again. Another night, another excuse. This time, Derek said he was at the gym, blowing off steam. But when I checked the tracker, the little wasn't anywhere near the fitness center. It was parked by that same neighborhood across town. I sat there on the couch, staring at my phone, every nerve in my body buzzing. I wanted to call him, to demand the truth, but a strange voice inside me whispered, "Wait. Watch." Collect. That was the night I realized something was deeply wrong. The safety tool Derek had so proudly introduced into our family's life had become my window into his lies. And I was just beginning to see how deep they ran. The human heart is strange. It can sense when something is wrong, but it will still beg for reassurance, still cling to familiar comforts even when the truth is staring you in the face. That's exactly what happened to me in those first few weeks. After that night with the so-called glitch, I told myself I was being paranoid. I buried myself in work, in the kids' schedules, in anything that could keep me from staring at that blue dot on my screen. But once you've seen a crack in the glass, you can't unsee it. You start to notice every tiny fracture spreading outward. Derek grew distant in subtle ways. His phone never left his side anymore, not even when he showered. His laughter with the kids felt thinner, like a recording of itself. And he was suddenly very careful with me. He'd kiss my cheek more often, compliment my cooking, even bring home flowers, cheap ones, the kind you grab at the grocery store checkout line. I should have felt flattered, but it all reeked of guilt. One Friday night, he called around 6 o'clock, just as I was packing the kids into the car for pizza night. His voice was smooth, easy. "Honey, I'm so sorry. Big client dinner downtown. These investors are crucial. Don't wait up, I'll probably be late." I glanced at the kids, then at the glowing screen in my hand. Client dinner downtown. The words hung in my head like a neon sign. As soon as I ended the call, I opened the app. My stomach dropped. He wasn't downtown. Not even close. The little dot hovered across town, in that same unfamiliar neighborhood I'd seen before. My hands shook as I zoomed in, staring at the streets, the parked cars, the glowing map. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear myself think. What is he doing there? Who lives there? I almost called him right then, ready to shout, to demand answers. But the kids were in the back seat, chattering about pepperoni and breadsticks, and I couldn't bring that storm into their night. So I said nothing. I drove us to the pizza place, plastered on a smile, and watched them laugh over greasy slices while I quietly drowned in dread. Later that night, when Derek came home, he smelled faintly of whiskey and something floral, not like the steakhouse colognes he usually carried from business dinners. I asked, careful, almost timid. "How was downtown? Where'd you go?" He didn't flinch. Didn't stammer. He smiled like a man with nothing to hide. "Oh, you know, the usual spot. Morton's. Great food, great conversation." He even launched into a fake story about an investor who loved the Lakers. I forced a laugh, nodding along, my pulse screaming. Morton's. Downtown. Investor stories. Meanwhile, I had his digital footprint glowing right in my pocket, telling me he was across town, not downtown. So I tested him. Just a little. "Funny," I said, keeping my tone light. "The app showed you somewhere else." "Near. I don't know, Maplewood?" For the briefest second, just a flicker, his eyes widened. Then he chuckled, smooth as silk. "Oh, that thing? Glitched again. I told you, Michelle, you can't trust those apps. It lost signal while I was in the parking garage. Must have rerouted my location." The confidence in his voice made me feel small. Made me question myself. Maybe he was right. Maybe it really was a glitch. After all, he was the one who'd installed it for our family in the first place. Why would he set up a lie that could expose himself? But deep down, I knew. That flicker in his eyes, that was the truth. And the flowers on the counter, the sudden kisses, the careful charm, that was the cover. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat in the dark with only the glow of my phone. I stared at the app, at the tiny history log of his movements. And for the first time, I started taking screenshots. One by one. Quiet, invisible proof. Because if the app was glitching, why did it always glitch in the same neighborhood? Why did it glitch every time Derek was working late? I kissed my kids goodnight, tucked them in, and whispered a promise to myself I wouldn't accuse him again. Not yet. Not until I had something undeniable. But from that moment on, I stopped being his trusting wife. I became his silent observer, his shadow. And Derek had no idea that the same tracker he'd put in our lives to control the story was about to write his downfall. Once I started keeping those screenshots, something inside me changed. I wasn't just a wife hoping her husband would come home for dinner anymore. I was a detective, quiet, invisible, patient. Every lie Derek told became another thread in a web I was weaving around him. It's strange, the way lies reveal themselves when you start looking closely. They don't come crashing down all at once. They unravel in tiny threads, slips of timing, repeated excuses, stories that don't quite fit. And Derek? He was starting to unravel faster than he realized. Take the gym, for example. Derek loved to brag about his workouts. He'd come home sweaty, flexing like some college kid, grinning at me as if I should be impressed. But one Tuesday, he said, "Don't wait up, honey. I need to blow off steam at the gym." The tracker showed him at an upscale restaurant across town. Not the gym. Not anywhere near it. The next week, he claimed he had a work conference at a hotel. He even carried an overnight bag, like he was actually traveling. But when I opened the app, the little blue dot was nowhere near a hotel. It sat in front of that same mysterious apartment complex, motionless for hours. Then there was the Friday night traffic jam. He called to say the freeway was a nightmare, bumper to bumper. But the tracker betrayed him. He wasn't stuck in traffic, he was parked. Parked for 3 hours in the same neighborhood that had become all too familiar to me. Each time, I said nothing. I smiled. I let him spin his stories. And then I logged it all, screenshots, dates, times, excuses. I kept a journal in my nursing bag, disguised as shift notes, where I wrote everything down. The app had become my silent partner, and together we were building a case. But what shook me most wasn't just the lies. It was the pattern. Because when I laid it all out, his claims, the screenshots, the map pins, one address came up again and again. A residential complex, trendy and modern, with sleek glass balconies and manicured hedges. That was where his dot hovered whenever he was working late, traveling, or stuck in traffic. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. One afternoon, while the kids were at school and I was on my lunch break, I made a decision that still makes my stomach twist when I think about it. I drove there. The neighborhood was quiet, polished, expensive in a way that whispered of new money. And there, in the parking lot, was Derek's car. Parked neat and shameless, like it belonged there. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My first instinct was to march up to the building, pound on every door until someone answered, drag Derek out by his collar if I had to. But I didn't. Because something colder, smarter, had taken over. Instead, I pulled out my phone. I snapped a picture of his car, timestamp and all. Then I opened the property records website and started digging. The apartment belonged to a woman named Amanda Torres. 29. Marketing coordinator. My breath caught. A name. A face. A person. Suddenly, the shadowy suspicion wasn't a blur anymore, it had a name and an address. That night, Derek waltzed through the front door like nothing had changed. He kissed me on the cheek, complimented dinner, asked the kids about their day. He was charming, relaxed, almost smug. And all I could think about was Amanda Torres. I looked her up online later, scrolling through her carefully curated photos, smiling with friends, sipping wine at rooftop bars, posing at her company's holiday party. Young. Pretty. Ambitious. The kind of woman Derek used to joke about when we were younger, before life and children and mortgages made me too tired for rooftop bars. But what struck me most wasn't her face or her age, it was her LinkedIn profile. Amanda worked at a company Derek had mentioned dozens of times, one of his big client accounts. He wasn't just lying to me. He was gambling his career on this affair. I shut my laptop slowly, my heart pounding in my ears. It wasn't just a glitch. It wasn't just a suspicion. Derek was living a double life, and the app he thought was his safety net had become my weapon. Still, I didn't confront him. Not yet. I had proof, yes, but proof wasn't enough. I wanted certainty. I wanted the kind of evidence that would make his lies collapse on themselves, the kind that would expose him completely. So I waited. I watched. I collected. And with every passing day, Derek walked deeper into the trap he had built with his own hands. The day I saw Derek's car in front of that apartment complex, I felt like the ground shifted beneath my feet. For weeks, I'd been collecting shadows, screenshots, excuses, half-truths, but now the shadows had taken shape. They had an address. They had a name. Amanda Torres. That night, while Derek snored softly beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smiling face from her LinkedIn photo. 29 years old. Marketing coordinator. Derek's client connection. Younger, fresher, unburdened by years of school projects, late-night fevers, or the scars of childbirth. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to imagine her as some villain, a scheming woman who'd set out to steal my husband. But deep down, I knew better. Derek was the one with vows. Derek was the one lying. Amanda was just the other woman. The next day, during my lunch break, I couldn't resist. I drove back to the apartment complex. It was reckless, dangerous even, but I needed more than names and screenshots. I needed to see. I parked a few blocks away and walked toward the building, heart hammering in my chest. The sun was high, shadows sharp, every step echoing like a warning. I kept my head down, pretending to scroll my phone, while my eyes scanned the lot. And there it was, Derek's car again, parked neat and confident like it belonged. I circled the block once, slow and steady, then stopped near the fence that lined the complex. From that angle, I could see a row of balconies. My stomach tightened as I imagined Derek inside one of those apartments, laughing, drinking, kissing someone who wasn't me. Just as I leaned closer, my phone buzzed. It was Derek. I nearly dropped the phone in panic, fumbling to answer before it rang again. I stammered, my voice catching. "Hey," he said casually, "just checking in. You on your break?" My knees almost gave out. If he somehow saw me here, if he walked out right now, everything would explode too soon. I forced my voice steady. "Yeah. Just grabbing a coffee. Long shift today." He chuckled. "Don't overdo it. I'll be late again tonight. Big client meeting." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Big client meeting. Right. I mumbled something about the kids' homework and ended the call as fast as I could. My hands were shaking. I shouldn't have been there. One wrong move and he would have known. But instead of retreating, I stayed. I crouched lower near the fence, peering through the slats like a criminal. And then I saw her. Amanda. She was walking across the courtyard, laughing into her phone. She wore business slacks and a fitted blouse, her hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. She looked professional, confident, alive. For a split second, I thought she looked like me a decade ago, before exhaustion etched lines into my face, before life dulled my edges. She disappeared into the stairwell, and I stood frozen. A cocktail of rage, grief, and bitter clarity burned through me. This wasn't a random fling. This was routine. Comfortable. Established. That night, Derek came home late again, humming softly as he tossed his blazer over a chair. He kissed me absent-mindedly on the forehead, then launched into a story about negotiating contract terms with clients over dinner. His voice was so casual, so confident, that if I didn't know the truth, I might have believed him. But I did know. I had seen Amanda with my own eyes. After he went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with my phone and journal, piecing it all together. Every late night, every traffic jam, every business trip. All of it led back to Amanda's apartment. And then something struck me. Derek wasn't just betraying me as a husband, he was betraying his job. Amanda was tied to his accounts. If anyone at his company found out, it wouldn't just be our marriage on the line. His entire career could implode. That realization sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't just a man having an affair. This was a man building a house of cards in the middle of a hurricane. And I knew, in that moment, I didn't just want to confront him. I wanted to dismantle him. Slowly. Publicly. With the same precision he thought he had hidden behind. So I kept watching. I kept collecting. I let him believe he was safe. Because Derek had no idea that the tracker app he installed to protect his family was the very thing that was going to destroy his. The more I learned, the more dangerous the silence became. Every day, Derek spun new excuses, new versions of reality, layering lie upon lie until our life together felt like living in a fog. But in that fog, I saw patterns. Times. Addresses. A rhythm of betrayal that no longer shocked me, it steeled me. I had enough proof to confront him already, but instinct told me, not yet. If I pounced too soon, he would twist it, gaslight me, maybe even find a way to blame me. That was Derek's gift, he could turn guilt into silk and wear it like a suit. So instead, I sharpened my weapon, patience. It started small. I synced screenshots from the tracker app onto a secret folder in the cloud, locked with a password Derek could never guess. I backed up phone logs, mileage estimates, credit card charges that lined up perfectly with his late nights. Each file was another nail in the coffin. And then I began rehearsing in my head, how would I expose him? Where? When? At work, as I guided patients through paperwork, my mind drifted. At home, folding laundry, I imagined scenarios. Derek storming. Derek denying. Derek unraveling. But nothing felt right, until I realized this wasn't about me and Derek alone. He had humiliated me in secret. If I wanted to truly strip away his mask, the world needed to see it. The perfect opportunity presented itself when Derek announced a family picnic his company was sponsoring. Big event, lots of networking, he said, adjusting his tie in the mirror. You and the kids should come. Show them the family side. The family side. I nearly laughed at the audacity. Here was a man playing house in two different lives, parading us when it suited him. He thought I'd smile politely, wave at his colleagues, and stand by his side while he whispered sweet nothings into Amanda's ear behind closed doors. But instead, I nodded. Of course, honey. We'll be there. Inside, something dark and sharp coiled like a spring. That picnic wasn't going to be a family day. It was going to be the stage. In the weeks leading up to the event, I played my role perfectly. Loving wife. Attentive mother. Supportive partner. Derek didn't notice the way my eyes lingered a beat too long on his phone when it buzzed. He didn't notice the way I tracked his every movement with surgical precision. But Amanda noticed me. One afternoon, scrolling through Derek's LinkedIn connections, I saw Amanda's recent activity. She had liked a post about the very picnic Derek mentioned. My chest tightened. So she would be there. And that was the final piece. Derek wasn't just bringing me into his world. He was bringing her too. The night before the picnic, I couldn't sleep. My journal sat open on the nightstand, filled with evidence, cross-referenced dates, and timelines so airtight even Derek's silver tongue couldn't slip through. I stared at the ceiling, imagining the moment of reveal. The sun on the park grass, the laughter of families, Derek's colleagues mingling with their wives and children. And then, silence. That hush that falls when truth detonates. But a dangerous thought gnawed at me. What if he finds out before? What if he suspects I know? So I tested him. The next morning, as he buttered toast at the kitchen counter, I asked casually, "You excited for tomorrow? Big event, huh?" "Yeah," he said, smiling that same rehearsed smile. "Good for business. You'll love it." I tilted my head, feigning curiosity. "Will Amanda be there?" "You've mentioned her before." His hand froze for half a second. Half a second was all I needed. Then he laughed, shaking his head. "Amanda? Oh, probably. She's on the team." "Why?" "Just wondering," I said, sipping my coffee. That moment told me everything. The flicker in his eyes, the too quick laugh. He didn't suspect me, yet. But he was nervous. Perfect. By the time Derek left for work, I was already deep into preparations. I printed copies of key screenshots, tucked them neatly into a slim folder. I rehearsed my words in front of the mirror, practicing calmness, control, power. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want to beg. I wanted to annihilate him with poise. When the day came, I dressed carefully, elegant but understated, like a woman who belonged at a corporate gathering, not one plotting a quiet war. The kids were excited for games and food, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath their mother's smile. As we loaded into the car, Derek glanced at me, his voice dripping with charm. "You look beautiful today." For the first time in months, I smiled back, not because I believed him, but because I knew something he didn't. Tomorrow, his double life would collapse. And he wouldn't even see it coming. The morning of the picnic felt like stepping into another life. The kids chattered in the back seat, excited about games, bounce houses, and free ice cream. Derek hummed along with the radio, acting like a picture-perfect father, the kind of man his coworkers surely admired. But me? I sat in the passenger seat, silent, watching the trees blur past the window. Every mile we drove brought me closer to the battlefield. I wasn't the same woman I had been when this began. Back then, I was a nurse, a wife, a mother, dutiful, steady, predictable. But now, I was something else. I was a hunter. The park was buzzing when we arrived. Rows of picnic tables lined with checkered cloths, children running with balloons, coworkers greeting each other with handshakes and hugs. Derek slipped seamlessly into the crowd, shaking hands with managers, laughing a little too loudly at jokes, introducing me and the kids like we were his prized possessions. "Michelle, this is Mark, one of our senior clients. And over here's Dana from accounting. You'll love her." I smiled politely, shook hands, exchanged pleasantries. My lips moved, my voice came out, but inside I was scanning the crowd. Searching. And then I saw her. Amanda Torres. She looked younger in person, polished and professional in a pale green dress that hugged her figure. She had the look of someone who believed she belonged at Derek's side. Confident. Comfortable. Too comfortable. Her eyes flicked toward Derek with familiarity that went deeper than coworker friendliness. And then she saw me. Our gazes locked for a fraction of a second. Hers widened, just slightly, before she smiled and looked away. That smile told me everything. She knew exactly who I was. For the next hour, the world around me blurred. I moved through the picnic as if through water. The smell of grilled burgers, the laughter of children, the clink of soda cans being opened, it all faded beneath the pounding of my pulse. I watched them. The stolen glances between Derek and Amanda. The way her hand brushed his arm when she walked past. The way he leaned in just a little too close when speaking to her, like the crowd around them was just background noise. And I smiled. Because while they thought they were hiding, I was already steps ahead. When Derek returned to me with 2 plates of food, I took them gracefully. "Everything all right?" he asked. His tone carried that careful, measured edge, as if some part of him suspected my silence wasn't ordinary. Perfect, I said sweetly. It's nice seeing your coworkers. They really admire how hard you've been working on the Morrison account. The effect was immediate. His fork paused midair, his eyes flickered for the briefest second before he caught himself. Oh, yeah, he said smoothly. Long hours, but worth it. I want to make a good impression. I murmured, biting into my sandwich. And you have. Inside, I almost laughed. That was my first strike, soft, almost invisible, but enough to make him sweat. I let the day unfold naturally. The kids played tug-of-war, Derek mingled, and Amanda floated in and out of our circle like a moth circling a flame. I didn't pounce. Not yet. Instead, I set little traps. At one point, I drifted near Derek's boss and struck up casual conversation. Derek's been working so late these past few weeks, I said, my tone laced with proud wife admiration. He told me the Morrison account has been so demanding. I don't know how he does it. The boss froze for just a beat before replying, Morrison? That account wrapped up months ago. I gasped lightly, feigning surprise. Really? Oh, maybe I misunderstood. But the seed was planted. His boss's brow furrowed, confusion gnawing at his polished expression. Later, as the sun began to dip and the golden light spilled over the picnic tables, I watched Derek and Amanda laugh at something in the distance. He touched her elbow in that too familiar way, leaning in close. And that's when the idea struck me, one final twist before the curtain fell. I pulled out my phone, pretending to check a message, and opened the family tracker app. I scrolled back through Derek's location history from the past week, the glowing blue dots painting a map of his lies. Every evening, his trail led not to the office, not to client dinners, but to Amanda's apartment complex. With a calm breath, I saved the screenshots into a folder titled simply, The Truth. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to accuse him behind closed doors. I was going to let the evidence speak for itself, in front of everyone who mattered to him. The moment wasn't now. But soon. Very soon. As the picnic wound down, Derek slid an arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. To anyone watching, we looked like the perfect couple, enjoying a summer evening with their kids. But inside, I was smiling for a very different reason. Because I knew something Derek didn't. The game was no longer his. It was mine. And tomorrow, his carefully constructed double life would implode under the weight of its own lies. The sky was streaked with orange and pink by the time Derek's company picnic reached its peak. Children darted between tables, the smell of barbecue still lingered, and the low hum of conversation carried across the lawn. It was the kind of evening meant for laughter and family. But for me, it was the moment I had been waiting for. I watched Derek laughing with his colleagues, Amanda hovering a little too close, sipping a drink as if she belonged there. My stomach twisted, but not with jealousy. No, with the sharp anticipation of a hunter who knows the trap is about to snap shut. I made my move. Casually, I strolled toward Derek's boss, Mr. Hammond, who stood with a small group of managers. My heart pounded, but my smile was calm, warm, perfectly rehearsed. You know, I said lightly, as if making small talk, Derek has been so dedicated lately. Working until 10 almost every night this week on the Morrison account. I don't know how he keeps up the energy. The effect was instantaneous. Mr. Hammond's brow furrowed. He glanced at the managers around him before replying, Morrison? That account wrapped up months ago. I gasped softly, hand fluttering to my chest. Oh, that's odd. Derek insisted it was keeping him late. Maybe I misunderstood. But I hadn't misunderstood. And by the looks exchanged between his boss and colleagues, the first crack in Derek's polished image had just appeared. Michelle. Derek's voice carried across the lawn as he approached, his smile tight. There you are. Everything okay? Perfect, I replied, holding his gaze. In fact, why don't you join us? I was just telling Mr. Hammond about all your late nights this week. Derek's smile faltered, then returned, forced and brittle. Oh, yeah, lots of projects, you know how it is. Funny, Mr. Hammond said, his tone cool, because there haven't been any projects requiring late nights. We pride ourselves on work-life balance. A hush rippled through the group. Derek laughed nervously. Must be a miscommunication. And that was my cue. I pulled my phone from my pocket, unlocked it with a steady hand, and opened the Family Tracker app. The map glowed on the screen, little blue dots marking Derek's movements for the past week. Maybe there has been some confusion, I said sweetly, turning the phone toward the group. Derek, why don't you clear it up for us? Here's where you've been working late. Gasps echoed as I zoomed in, the address lighting up on the screen. Not the office. Not any client building. Over and over again, the same spot appeared, Amanda's apartment complex. The silence was deafening. Amanda stiffened, her drink trembling in her hand. Derek's face drained of color. Michelle, this is a misunderstanding, he stammered. The app must have glitched. Oh. I tilted my head, my voice calm, razor sharp. Glitched every single night for weeks? Glitched during your business trip to Austin when you never left town? Glitched when you stayed overnight at this same address? I turned to Amanda, my eyes locking on hers. That's your address, isn't it? The crowd shifted, every eye burning into her. Her face flushed crimson, her lips parted, but no words came. Mr. Hammond's expression hardened. Derek, is this true? You've been lying about your hours, and fraternizing with a client contact? Derek sputtered, no, it's not like that, I was just. Just what? I cut in, my voice sharp now. Just betraying your family while I worked double shifts at the hospital? Just sneaking around while our children wondered why Daddy missed dinner again? The words landed like stones in the silence. Derek reached for my arm, his mask cracking into desperation. Michelle, please, let's not do this here. I pulled back, steady and firm. Why not? You didn't mind humiliating me in secret. Now you can face the truth in public. The crowd was frozen, a sea of shocked faces. Amanda turned away, covering her face. Mr. Hammond muttered something about highly inappropriate conduct and shook his head. And Derek. Derek looked smaller than I had ever seen him. His charm, his confidence, his carefully constructed facade, all of it collapsing under the weight of cold, undeniable evidence. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the distant laughter of children still playing, unaware of the storm at the picnic tables. Finally, I slipped my phone back into my purse and looked Derek in the eye. The truth is simple, Derek. And sometimes, it's just a click away. With that, I turned, gathered my children, and walked away, leaving him standing there in the ruins of his lies, exposed before everyone who had once admired him. Walking away from that picnic, hand in hand with my children, I felt something shift inside me. For months, I had carried the weight of suspicion, dread, and betrayal like a stone pressing on my chest. But now, for the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe. The truth was no longer a secret lodged in my throat. It was out in the open, undeniable, exposed under the summer sky for everyone to see. And Derek? He was left standing in the ruins of his own lies. The fallout came faster than I expected. That Monday, Derek's company launched an internal review. Word spread quickly, how he had lied about his hours, how he had crossed professional lines with a client contact. Within a week, he was called into the office and escorted out with a cardboard box of his belongings. Years of climbing the corporate ladder gone in an instant. Amanda didn't fare much better. Her company, furious about the scandal, terminated her contract. The whispers followed her too, her reputation stained, her career derailed. And me? I didn't need to do a thing. The truth had done all the work. At home, Derek tried to salvage what he could. He came back with promises, apologies, desperate bargains. "Michelle, please, we can fix this. It was a mistake. I'll do better, I swear." But his words no longer had power over me. I had seen the evidence, lived through the lies, and watched him crumble in front of his colleagues. His promises were as empty as the late nights he had spent in another woman's bed. So I filed for divorce. And with the stack of location evidence I had collected, the screenshots, the logs, the timelines, the court had no sympathy for Derek. Primary custody of the children was awarded to me. Alimony was ordered in my favor. The judge didn't mince words. Derek's pattern of deception was undeniable. The man who once held all the control had lost everything. But the victory wasn't just legal or financial. It was personal. One evening, a few weeks after the papers were signed, I sat with my children at the kitchen table. The glow of the family tracker app still lit my phone screen. My daughter asked softly, "Mom, why did Dad lie so much?" I paused, looking at their innocent faces, the hurt still fresh in their eyes. "Because sometimes people are afraid of the truth," I said gently. "But we don't run from it. We face it. We choose honesty, even when it's hard." They nodded slowly, absorbing my words. And in that moment, I realized the true meaning of everything I had done. This wasn't just about catching Derek. It was about teaching my children the value of integrity, the strength of standing up for yourself, and the power of refusing to live in someone else's lies. The night Derek came to collect the last of his things, he stood in the doorway, looking around the house as if he no longer recognized it. He opened his mouth to speak, but I raised a hand. "There's nothing left to say, Derek. You made your choices. And now I'm making mine." He swallowed hard, nodding, then walked out into the night with nothing but his box of clothes and shattered pride. As the door closed behind him, I locked it, not just physically, but symbolically. A chapter of my life had ended. Later, I sat by the window, watching my children sleep peacefully. The tracker app still glowed faintly in my hand, but instead of dread, I felt peace. This little tool that Derek had introduced for family security had become the very weapon that freed me. And as I deleted his profile from the app, a calm smile spread across my face. The truth had been there all along, waiting for me to see it clearly. And now, I was free.